Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films. We have a very informative video today. As you can see, I have Ken McKusick with me today. Ken, how are you doing? And if anybody doesn't know, where can they find your work?
Hey, life's good, Jason. Thanks for having me on. At Film Study Ravens, as you can see on the ticker there at the bottom or on the nameplate. And filmstudybaltimore.com is the website. Please go out there, join us. Lots of stuff, video, a lot of analytics work, fair amount of film, just good stuff, and articles people I think are pretty used to on the offensive line, the defense after the games.
Ken does a lot of stuff, including grading. But what my favorite thing about Ken is he taught me a lot about football. And today we're going to talk about the dime defense, how we used that last year, and how we have a need for the dime defense and hope to use it more this year. So I hope you guys enjoy. We're going to jump right into it.
Appreciate that. And people who know me from my show know I'm a huge fan of the dime defense. The 2019 Ravens, tremendously successful year, a lot of big leads throughout the year, used the dime defense on approximately 41% of plays, and they dropped to about 15.5 or 16% in 2020. Unfortunately, I don't have that number up right in front of me, but that's the range. That's a very prodigious drop in 1 year, and it really was a part of the factor was they did not really have three safeties they trusted for a lot of the year. So we're going to look at some plays though and see how the Ravens play dime defense, some of the things they use, and not only how do they align their defensive backs and what other personnel do they have, but how does that really impact the pass rush as they go through this.
Yes, and we picked out games from our divisional opponents. So you're going to get to see the Browns, you're going to see the Bengals, then you're going to get to see the Steelers, and you'll see how those offenses attack us, and especially in the case of the Steelers, spreading it out, no running backs on a few plays. They went to one tight end, four wide receivers, 0-1 formation, and the Ravens' need for a defensive back, you'll be able to see how we hope to attack that this year as compared to last year, hopefully more in the Ravens of the past defense.
So the first play we're going to take a look at is really the first big Ravens play of 2020. And you'll remember it. It was against the Browns on that first series. Got a little bit of drop into the secondary from Calais Campbell, of all people, who tipped the ball to Marlon Humphrey for the interception. Campbell kind of humorously didn't realize the ball had been picked off, pounded the ground when he didn't get it himself. And it's kind of a fun look. But we're going to start here from the All-22, which is actually the end zone view is what's truly the All-22. The other one you'll see occasionally, I'll bring that up for a second, here is actually the top view, which allows you to see route depth and whatnot. But we want to start with the All-22 on this because we're trying to see how does a dime defense align right now. By the way, still getting a little bit of reverb here as we move on, but I'm sure we'll get these technical problems worked out. So we'll look at the alignment coming up right here, and the Ravens have 6 in the secondary. They have 3 outside linebackers. This is Pernell McPhee over here. By the way, I'm not sure how I highlight this, but Pernell McPhee, number 90, Tyus Bowser, number 54, and we have Matthew Judon, number 99 here. We also have Derek Wolfe here, 95, and 93 Calais Campbell on the field. So 3 outside linebackers, 2 defensive linemen, and 3 safeties and 2 corners. The 3 safeties you can all see on the screen here are Clark, Elliott, and Smith. This is what I would call the most common dime alignment. It's 3 safeties and 3 cornerbacks. In 2019, when they used this in the second half of the season, it was really Clark who would come up and play that dime role, which is really the dime defender typically, if there is an inside linebacker on the field, lines up kind of as a weak side linebacker spot, even basically with the other linebacker on the field, or sometimes he's the only linebacker. In this case, the Ravens have 0 inside linebackers on the field. So this is a fairly extreme version of the dime that's being shown here, even though there's 3 safeties on the play.
And I think that's a good point, Ken, because a lot of people think that the dime safety is the deep guy, and that's not really how it works. So you'll see Jimmy here, actually, Jimmy Smith, number 22, lined up at basically free safety as Elliott creeps up to the line of scrimmage. And as you said, Chuck Clark has some freedom here on this play.
Yeah. So and really when they did this alignment, they really intended, I think, for Jimmy to play the back end because he understands a lot of the coverage dynamics and whatnot and can react well to what the receiver is doing on the outside. So he's a good choice to play the back end. As a thin, less physical guy, he's really not as good a choice to play up front in that dime spot, which is really like a light linebacker. You can think of it as. What I always say on my show is that your third best coverage safety is almost always better than your second best coverage inside linebacker. And so you always get a bigger coverage asset on the field. But the thing that goes along with that is that your safety also should bring you something in terms of the pass rush, in terms of whether he can blitz, he can maybe stunt around another player, as we'll see on this play, or he can take up a short middle zone with a lot of understanding about what routes might be run behind him, the kind of detail that a safety really has to understand.
And that's a lot of flexibility in that position, because if you're rushing, Ken, you don't need a pass rush move on some of these plays. So Chuck Clark's a guy who can cover. If they do hand it off, he gets, is very comfortable in the box. But he also gives you that free, fast rusher, safety type rusher. When he does rush, can hit a gap, can be a little patient with it, find the weak spot sometimes. And Chuck is very good at in this role. Absolutely,
yeah. He that versatility. He had the best dime year ever by a Raven defender. And by the way, that is saying a lot in 2019. 2018, Levine had just done it. And Clark was even better in 2019, had the green dot while he did it. So we're going to take a look at this play right now, and we'll just talk a little bit about what happens. Let it run through a little bit here. So this ends up being 7 men up close to the line of scrimmage. It's a ball snap as you see Elliott creeping up. And they do a lot of things here. Okay, you see the interception there. Campbell's unhappy. Humphrey's ecstatic, so are the rest of the Ravens. Kind of a funny thing here, but we're going to go back a little bit, take another look at that. So now take a look at what the Ravens do. This is classic Martindale. So they have Bowser dropping here, number 54. You have Judon dropping, and we have Campbell dropping. But they don't just drop straight back. Guys who drop from the line of scrimmage can do a lot of help for you when they drop and move laterally.
And there's no way Baker Mayfield is going to expect Campbell to go that far that quickly. And, it looks like a balanced attack when they line up. But basically what they're doing is dropping off the entire left side of their defense and dropping coverage into the right angle. I mean, that's a throw 95 times out of 100. Baker Mayfield's going to complete. He's not going to worry about Campbell. All things equal, if the receiver's open or whatnot, you're not going to have somebody, especially with Campbell's number and size, dropping into coverage and doing that. It makes it very tough on a quarterback to get in the rhythm.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. And you look at this play, actually Cleveland picks up the stunt from Clark, the stunt from McPhee, the move outside. Yeah, I mean, they pick it all up. They did a good job. In fact, they really won the line of scrimmage pretty dramatically in this ballgame, despite losing 38-6. And yet Campbell is the key guy. His lateral movement obviously gets in the face of Mayfield, throws a little bit behind the receiver, I think, anyway. But once it gets tipped, doesn't look like there's any way that's going to be an interception. And Humphrey makes a miraculous pick off the ground here to clean this up. So a beautiful play.
I love Jimmy Smith's block on that. I apologize for interrupting. He just had that awareness that if Humphrey got touched, it was down right there, and really stuck with that block. And I just really appreciated that. And I wanted to point out also, this is early in the game, Ken. They're not down. They're not down by 21 points here. I mean, there's no reason for Baker Mayfield to make a mistake. It's just the defensive look fooled him.
Right. Third and 10. So the Ravens did their job getting to this position. But again, it's the dime defense has a lot of flexibility to it. And there's you see a lot of it right on that very play there. So I'm going to go and get to the next one here, which is 2 plays in a row beginning Q3, 3:12. And I'm sorry, I'm maybe over narrating a little bit here. I'm going to try and give you a little bit more.
It's perfectly okay. I love it. Love hearing your voice, and it's much easier for you to navigate. The thing on these plays coming up, though, Ken, I don't believe that there's a inside linebacker on the field. It's just Derek Wolfe. You're going to have Jihad Ward on the field with Tyus Bowser, and again, they're using McPhee almost as an inside rusher at this point. Must make it really hard to score when you have a guy like Jimmy Smith sometimes who lines up different places, or a guy like McPhee. I mean, technically, I guess you could count him as a defensive lineman because he sure does play there a whole heck of a lot. But in the Ravens defense, of course, Pernell McPhee is an outside linebacker.
Yeah, and a quality inside rusher as well. I mean, I don't remember where McPhee's lined up on this play, but we have 2 plays in a row here. The first one is a 4th and 9 play. And you notice right here, first of all, I've allowed the film to advance here, but Tyus Bowser jumps offside, which is going to negate this play. That was unfortunate. But the pass was incomplete, and the Ravens defense really did a good job despite the penalty. So I just want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I love Averett, I believe's performance at the bottom here on Beckham, because this is essentially, as you mentioned, a free play for Baker Mayfield, and you see the field position right there, right at the 35. So this is a dangerous spot for the Ravens to be jumping off sides and giving a free play to.
Right. And this is, I agree completely. This is a package I call race car. You might call it a NASCAR package. A lot of people call it by different things, but they've got 1 down lineman in the game, that's Wolf, and they've got 4 outside linebackers, which they played a lot in 2019. In fact, they played that more than they played the base defense in various forms of 4 outside linebacker packages. 13.2% of that, only 10.6% of the base package. They played less race car in 2020, but they still played plenty of it and were very effective. So they've got Judon McPhee, Ferguson on the inside here also with Bowser. And then they've got a 6-man defensive back, again, no inside linebackers, as you mentioned. This is Clark again up here in that dime spot. So he's basically an inside linebacker on the play. The rest of the defense is all deep, as you can see here. So we're gonna talk a little bit about this. We got a Bowser offside. We did see really good step-by-step coverage and some pressure to the outside from Averett that I like on that play. That you have a chance to get the guy all the way to the sideline and make him your friend on that.
Yeah, look at Averett just there getting after Odell Beckham. And then Ward, of course, gives up on this play. Excuse me, while you rewind it. You can see Jihad Ward gets confused, but he just stops. You know, he sees Bowser jumped off sides. See right there next to Bowser. Jihad Ward's actually kneeling on this play. Throws the whole rhythm off. But why in a formation like this, Ken, or why would a dime defense be effective in this situation as compared to a nickel, say?
Okay, well, first of all, a nickel defense has 2 inside linebackers, and this has 0. So you're getting a much better set of coverage and pass rush assets on the field. So you got 6 defensive backs. You have 3 and 3 safeties and corners on the field. And like I always say, your third best safety is a better guy than your better coverage guy than your second best inside linebacker. And then you also have, on the Ravens case, 2 outside linebackers in Judon and Bowser who are excellent coverage assets themselves. And that was something we were afraid of this offseason, is the Ravens might not be able to continue that.
Yes, I believe it's one of the main reasons Yannick Ngakoue didn't fit. And then you look at what the Ravens drafted in Dalen Hayes. I expect to see him. I mean, he mentioned specifically that he played sub packages or defensive end in our sub packages. And it had me thinking about this particular dime defense overall, as far as being a guy that you could line up over the guard. But of course, you know, Hayes is known for his ability to drop into coverage.
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, the Ravens would love to have 3 guys like that. If they had 3 they could trust, that would be fantastic. I think Owe is a guy, if you look down the line, certainly has the athleticism to cover. He's pretty much a pure rush linebacker. He needs to learn that part of the game probably first, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to have him drop to coverage in the future.
Sure. Maybe as the year goes on is my thoughts on that. Give him some basic coverage stuff at first, but maybe as the year goes on, give him a little more responsibility. But, you know, when you're talking about McPhee and Ferguson, that's not their strength. So somebody's going to have to do it, Ken.
Sure. We'll go to this next play here, which is on 4th and 4 on the very next play. And got the same set of players lining up. And let's see what happened here. Ward drops to a zone blitz on this play, so a little bit different of a coverage dynamic. But a lot of things happen on this play. Primarily, Ward does his job, but he's not the big player that's doing his job. The coverage just from the defensive backs is excellent. And then they get good pressure from, who is this now?
That's Clark, or is that Elliott? That's
It was
Clark.
Clark,
Yes.
yeah. Clark initially gets the pressure. Bowser, this shows you when you got good defensive backs how valuable it is to have outside linebackers that have a motor. A couple of things go wrong is Clark flushes the pocket left. And I don't know about you, but that's one of the first things I look for. I love when the pocket gets flushed to the left because that's death for a right-handed quarterback.
Yes, and I think Bowser overall has gotten better at that. It was one thing that would occasionally bother me about Judon is he would crash the edge and allow quarterbacks to run to the right, which isn't necessarily the case on this play, the circumstances. But all in all, what I'm getting at is the ability to have that quarterback flush to his left, even if it's not as extreme in this case, is just a very uncomfortable position in which to throw.
Right. Very, very few quarterbacks can get their feet set as a right-hander to make a good throw again. They have to be Mahomes or Jackson in their ability to rotate their upper body to really be able to make good throws while rolling left. And there are very few right-handed quarterbacks who could do it. Joe Flacco, and we don't want to beat on Joe Flacco, but he was kind of like Frankenstein moving to the left in terms of his ability to reset and look upfield and make a play.
And Ken, even for the guys you're talking about, the Lamars and the Mahomes, when they're rolling left, it does shut off half of the field.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we're going to see in this play, there's a slot receiver or a tight end. We're running wide open. He actually has separation. Mayfield's so far away, there's no way he can make that throw across the field. It's going to get intercepted. And he probably physically couldn't even make it. So even the special quarterbacks who can throw off of all platforms. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I've seen him do it. It doesn't look as pretty, but he's got so much arm strength and he has that arm flexibility. It really limits, if you're rolling left as a quarterback, your targets are from, you'd be lucky if you make it to the opposite hash. It's pretty much a middle of the field situation at that point.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I'd even say it's left hash left. And all of the rules of receiving tell those receivers basically to come to that left sideline or the right sideline on a roll right for that matter. And it really does eliminate a lot of things. But when you roll right, you do have, I think you have more of the field you can take a chance on. When you roll left, you better not throw back to the right because your body is just not set to do that as a right-handed quarterback.
The old adage is don't throw across the middle late. But if you're rolling right, you can put a little extra mustard on it. You're rolling left and throwing across your body. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's going to be a duck. All right, here we go. So this is from Week 5 against Cincinnati. This is now a little bit different look, but they have Marcus Gilchrist now on the team. And a lot of people don't remember that he was with the team, but the Ravens fairly effective playing dime defense for a couple of weeks with him, Philadelphia, Cincinnati. And then he hadn't played great, I would say, but it was still a little bit surprising. They let him go when they didn't really have another safety to take over. Levine got hurt in Week 2. So he really wasn't available to do this. They had a special teamer in Richards, who they didn't want to play on defense certainly, and certainly didn't want to play as a dime defender. And they really had nobody else during their whole year. Geno Stone was there on the practice squad for most of the year and occasionally on the roster, but not really used in that role. Who could have been the most likely to take over some dime responsibilities or potentially some split back end, but they never went to him. So basically at this point, this is a dime again of the original variety, but there's 2 defensive linemen, 3 outside linebackers. Back to kind of the first play of the year and how we were seeing that. So you got Campbell on the field, and you have, I think it's Wolf on the field, but I'm trying to find him. Okay,
he's in the middle.
There you go. And then you got Bowser, and I think this might be McPhee. I'm not 100% sure. And
it's like Judon.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and watch the play roll out here, and
it's going to be a really good job over there on the right side of your screen.
Mm-hmm. So Clark right up the middle. This was a game where there was a lot of failure by the Cincinnati line in general to figure out what was going on. But the Ravens helped them fail to figure that out on some of these plays. So this is not in no way is this good offensive line play. They should have figured out how to get Clark blocked here. But this is what you're looking for. And part of the dime, what's so good about the dime defense is getting unblocked pressures because you deceive the offensive line. And here it happens with Clark. So let's just take a quick look here. Clark jumps into that left A gap. And then, left guard or center, neither one of them is responsible all of a sudden. And immediately Clark's in Burrow's face. The throw's over the middle. It's a little bit long, and that's when you get picks.
How about your buddy A.J. Green here on this play?
This is one of the case studies of A.J. Green not playing his heart out in his final year as a Bengal. I know a lot of Bengals fans don't really like me bashing that, but boy, his effort on the picks this year just terrible. He just stops. And then after the play, he's not, he's really not trying to make a tackle.
Let me just head upfield here.
I'll mirror the movement of the ball carrier.
Maybe he thinks Ray Lewis is still out there. Words. Maybe he thinks it's 2010 where he could really get crackback blocked on that.
Yeah, there you go.
But hey, Ken, just wanted to say, I mean, just lining up 6 guys across the line of scrimmage evenly, when you have to get it right, and it puts the onus. You're going to luck into that a few times. Obviously, it's a breakdown by the Bengals. They could have picked that up better. It really forced Burrow into that interception. Burrow, very accurate quarterback usually. He found himself, I believe, basically off his back foot, off balance, and that's okay. We'll catch back up to it. It's no rush.
Sorry, I jumped ahead of the next play here. I know we're probably going either a little bit too fast or a little bit too slow for people, but I do want to see what we're looking at. I kind of like this angle better because we can see the Ravens' numbers easier. Mm-hmm. But this is Marcus Gilchrist over here, number 33. One of the few times you'll still see him in a Ravens uniform. But we've got the usual stuff happening. We got 3 safeties and 3 corners on the field again for this. So it's the more common 3-3 with, in this case, Gilchrist staying as the dime back here, staying up close to the line of scrimmage. 36 drops to a short zone on the right side, as it turns out. So he's taking that, what I would call what you really want from the dime back is the ability to play that short zone, play it well, and understand the routes behind him in a way that inside linebackers for the Ravens have not recently done. So we're going to watch this play, how this works out here. Okay, now Clark ends up intercepting this ball, and there's so much I love about him getting to this football, because I don't think it's even his to get. I think it's really Elliott's. But right. Clark understood where that ball was going probably before Burrow knew on this play. It almost seems it's like before Burrow now. We'll go back to the beginning of this play here and take another look at it. Simple 5-0 rush on this play. We have an offsides again from Judon that actually negates this. But Bowser, again, his speed meant a lot on that rush. We can look at this from the other angle. We're going to see better how Clark drops into coverage on this play. And again, we're going back to the top view here. This is Clark. Watch how he understands, because he's got short zone responsibility. Ends up really on the back end on a 2-3, a level 2, level 3 coverage here. So watch what happens here. So he's got short middle zone responsibility. He's got 4 across there. But then he says, oh, no, the ball's coming over here. I better get deep. And then sure enough, he does, and he's right there for the pick. It's not his responsibility at all. That's all Elliott. But great interception by Clark on that play. Really too bad that got called back. A lot of times I hear a lot of dissing of Clark's coverage ability. He's got real skills. I mean, I'm not saying he's the perfect guy to have on the back end as free safety, but he's got real skills. And particularly if the Ravens can get him back in the highest leverage downs in this dime back position, I'm going to really love that this year.
I tell you what, I have no complaints. I mean, our young linebackers are still learning. I would love to see it, but yes, I mean, that was just perfectly illustrated on the back end. I love the top view of this play in particular, but you can see Chuck's instincts just on this. I mean, he's getting a really deep drop on the first guy he's covering, and then just having a feel for the play after that.
Yeah, I think Elliott knows that he probably would have picked that play if Clark hadn't been around. He's almost frustrated by it at the end of the play, kind of throws his arms up for a second. Some of it may be yeah, all right, but some of it may have been, oh, wow, I should have had that. Going to a slightly different version now. This is with Queen on the field on the very next play. So the very next play is 3rd and 7 now instead of the 3rd and 12 after the offsides and negated interception. We have Clark again playing dime back. At least it appears that Elliott's also up here. So Gilchrist is on the back end on this play as the 3rd safety. And we'll just take a look at how this develops pre-snap here.
There's Drew
Clark
Sample.
staying. We got Gilchrist you can see over here. Yeah.
So of
I'm
course,
sorry, what was the point you wanted to make?
no, I was just going to say you could see the Bengals motioning in the tight end there,
Okay.
feeling the pressure, feeling that this might be a situation. They don't know who's coming. They're going to pull Drew Sample, the tight end, to Burrow's left there. And you can see Sample try to pick up. You can tell he's not blocking on his end. He's looking for the pressure and trying to negate it.
Okay. That's a good point. I wanted to say this is another case where they show 6 at the line of scrimmage, so they show simulated pressure, but they only end up rushing 4, and one of those is Queen blitzing from off the line of scrimmage here. So let's take a look at the play again. Queen was not quite on the line of scrimmage. I sorted it. See, some people would say this is not even a blitz because he started the line of scrimmage, but they have 3 guys drop, and those 3 are Clark, McPhee, who, by the way, does something McPhee, Clark, and Bowser. I want to point to Clark again because I love it when defensive backs or anybody who's rushing the passer does this. Put your hands on the guy across the line of scrimmage before you drop. First of all, you get some leverage pushing off them. But second of all, the other thing you get is you confuse the hell out of that lineman, and you often take him out of the play. So watch what Clark does on this play. I just love this. Gets his hands on 2 different linemen, then drops.
I also feel like it hides you. It hides you. It hides your attention. It's just
you're hidden behind a taller player who the quarterback might miss you if he's trying to dump the ball off short. I agree with that entirely. So anyway, we saw some splash plays from Queen early in the year. Gets a very much a play that's set up for him to get a sack here with what essentially is a stunt. I don't call it a stunt because it's a blitz. He gets to go 2 gaps over, and even though there's some people responding to him, they're not quick enough to do that much. The pressure sets up, and then once Queen gets the back end, he's basically got the sack here. We were watching this, and Maureen and I watched film, and we are recording the players as we go. And so I got to this point in this play, and I said, Queen's going to sack him on this play because you can see he's rolling left, first of all, right-handed quarterback. Bowser's perfectly set up, McPhee's set up, and Campbell's set up to take away the edge from him here. But you can just tell Queen is going to have the closing speed necessary to take care of Burrow at this point. And sure enough, boom, and the ball comes out, and he picks it up. So he kind of trifectas it.
And Ken, if you can freeze it right there.
Sure.
And rewind it to, can you give me the overhead view? Because I love the coverage.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, at the top, I apologize. Humphrey's coverage. You can see Burrow's eyes. I want you to freeze it the first time you see Burrow look to the left here, if you can.
Okay, sure.
Okay, right there.
Yeah.
Now look at that coverage downfield. It was
the
only place he could have went, man. I love that. That was one of the first plays I put on the highlight tape there for old Marlowe. Just an awesome job. Physical throughout the route.
Great point.
That's Jimmy.
Forced to roll left, and then there is nobody over there. There's only one receiver deep. There's one receiver in the middle of the field. That's absolute death for a right-handed quarterback. Look at it one more time here. So great. It is great coverage over here. You're right. It's Jimmy, isn't it? 22, right? It's not Humphrey.
Jimmy and Marlon, but Jimmy really finishes it off. Yeah.
I mean, you're forced to roll left, and there's one deep receiver. That's all you got. I mean, it's just he'd have been better off just diving for a sack, obviously, a little bit earlier on that play, but not something they typically teach him to do.
And he was out of the pocket too, Ken. So I don't know how long it took him to get out of the pocket, or if that was a real possibility once he felt Queen coming on. But yeah, that's a rookie mistake from Burrow, and on that play, I think Joe Burrow, by the way, Ken's going to be okay in this league from what I saw in him.
Oh yeah, no, he looks like he's going to be thorn in the Ravens' side for years. So I would agree entirely. So we'll go to the Pittsburgh game in Week 8 right now. Is that okay? Can we move on now?
Yes, let's go. I think it's going really well. Thanks.
All right, so we'll jump ahead. Now, we've seen all good plays from the Ravens so far. Now we're going to see some of the ways in which the Ravens dime kind of let them down in some situations. We're going to go to Q3 1104 here, and just love the way this is indexed.
At this point in the game, the Ravens were basically running all over the Steelers, and the Steelers decided their offense. The Steelers scored first of all on an interception return. Offense was really going nowhere. So they decided this was really the beginning of the 2021 Steelers, both their what kept them winning games and was eventually their demise, is that they had no running game. they basically just said in this situation, Ken, we're not going to run the ball. We're barely going to put a running back out there. If it is, we're going to have one running back, rest receivers, all split the field wide, and really try to take advantage of the Ravens and pick on some people here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, in a lot of ways, I think it's this alignment that basically was a last gasp of the Steelers to try and not only win this game, but keep their offense going in the second half. And the Ravens, in a way, put out a blueprint for other teams to beat them. And they had one weakness that we'll get to here in a moment. But the Steelers go 5 wide here, and includes, I forget if it includes a tight end and a running back in this case, but I don't think it really matters. It's 5 wide with Ben in the shotgun. Did this a lot in the second half. And the Ravens are in a dime with, let's make sure I have this correct here, 1 inside linebacker here. So they've got, it looks like Queen on the field here with Clark up front as well. The Clark's opposite a receiver. Yes, that's what it is. This is a 4-corner dime.
Right, with Bonds is the fourth corner right there, as Ken's pointing to.
Yeah, so it's one of the weaknesses of this is that Steelers had 4 wide receivers they could spread and do either 10 or 01 personnel, and this really gave them an opportunity to pick on the weakest available coverage player in these kind of formations, and unfortunately that was Bonds in this group, and they did a fairly good job of doing it. Not on that play. On that play, they happened to get a slipping Clark. Actually, it wasn't even a slipping Clark. Take a look at what happens on the top view on this. A mugged Clark would be more accurate here.
Yes.
So Clark is here, tight end. Oh, pushes him to the ground. Oh, I'm open. and he gets the football. Unbelievable that was not called as offensive pass interference. Clark looks like he's a little angry after the play. But anyway, this did give the Ravens some trouble. They weren't pretty drives, really, but the Steelers had a couple long drives in that third quarter to come back from a big deficit. And it was basically a lot of nickel and dime throws against the 4-corner dime look that allowed them to move fairly easily down the field. The very next play we'll look at too. And stop me, by the way, if you want to have any other commentary on these. I apologize for kind of rushing through this.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say that I felt like overall, I don't know if you agree with this point or not. I wanted to get your opinion that we kind of felt unprepared for this, Ken. Like we didn't mix it up. Usually in these type of situations, I would expect the Ravens to flood one side or to really try to do something to get in these passing lanes quick because the ball was coming out so fast and we were just relying on our guys to rally and tackle. And it was Terrell Bonds. We really didn't respond well in this situation. I mean, even when they had a tight end in the game, it was Ebron. He was spread out wide. So it was basically spreading the field with receivers, whether it was a tight end or not in the game.
That's right. That's right. And they obviously were very effective doing it. This is another case where the Ravens just decided, let's drop 7 to coverage here. It's a 4-0, plain vanilla rush, as I call it. The 4 you see is the 4 you get, meaning the 4 guys at the line of scrimmage with the 4 who rush. 4-0, the 4 is for the number of total rushers, the 0 is for the number of guys dropping from the line of scrimmage into coverage.
And, of course, we got Yannick Ngakoue in the game now, and I believe he's in all these plays.
Okay, so they got some pressure on this one. The ball was out fairly quickly, and Terrell Bonds is called for a 20-yard pass interference penalty, which is unfortunate.
It's a nice little stunt, and I believe McPhee was on the front end of that. It's something that McPhee, Wolf, and Campbell, I think, are all excellent at.
Yeah, in terms of a pass rush, you're pretty happy with this, but it's a fairly plain vanilla 2-stunt look. Not even bad coverage by Bonds. Probably, I'll tell you what, if that's pass interference, you better call the offensive pass interference on that previous play on Ebron.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the beginning of that was clean. It was just basically a little hand check, and then the second part of it, I guess it's a judgment call, but that sure would have helped us out because you see all the plays Ken's pulling up that happened after that. It certainly kept us on the field. Yeah,
it did. So we got a couple more to look at from this game. Anything more to say about that play before I?
No, I just wanted to point out that look at that drive that you're scrolling through there on the right. I mean that told the story of the game. A lot of plays for the Steelers. It was a slow, painful game to watch. You were at that game. I was actually at that game as well. and it just felt like we were so much in control. I remember going to the concession stands at this game at halftime, and I don't get caught up in the stats on the scoreboard, but I'm like, I wonder how many rushing yards we have. Looked it up. I'm like, oh man, And then of course that early interception really kept that game close.
Yeah, that's true. And they only threw 3 times to James Prochet all year, and 2 of them were pick sixes to the Steelers. One that early in this game, and another one by RG3 in the COVID game at Pittsburgh. So kind of a bummer, obviously. So I want to go to this. This is a really important change that occurred for the Ravens later in the year. And I think we start with the all 22 in this play to just see who's on the field and what the kind of the problem is. I cannot actually see. I think this is Patrick Queen in here.
It sure is, and you got Brandon Williams on the nose in this play, and we've seen a lot of Derek Wolfe and Campbell in these clips, but they're not afraid to play Brandon Williams in the dime defense either.
Yeah, they're not. They don't do it all that often, but when they do, he's perfectly good pocket pusher. Can do a lot of things to help you in terms of setting up a stunt, but he's more typically on rush downs. But you're right, they're not afraid to, and they did a fair amount of it in 2020
And I mean, Brandon really can. If you're putting him in a situation where it's one-on-one, he's really gonna. He's hard to anchor against. I guess is what I'm saying. He's not going to finish off a sack most of the time, but as far as getting that pressure and moving the quarterback's feet, Big Brandon can do that. And then if not, you're going to have to assign 2 people from him, which in a lot of these blitz-heavy situations the Ravens like to use is not going to be possible. So, yeah, I don't have any problems with Brandon being in these situations, even though obviously Campbell and Wolfer have a better history at pass rush there.
Yeah, they do, and blitz scheme would work better against Roethlisberger. But honestly, so it may be a losing proposition to try and rush numbers against Roethlisberger, as opposed to dropping 8 when he's consistently getting the ball off in the low 2s or even in the 1s. You almost can't develop even a quick pressure against that. And Ben, even at his age and relative physical condition, is very good at getting rid of the ball quickly and not letting a quick pressure in his face bother him the way a lot of other quarterbacks do.
Yeah, the older you get, Ken, the less hits you want to take, the fewer hits, and the better feel you have for the game. So, yeah, the older they get, the quicker the ball comes out, it seems like.
Definitely the case in his case. And that was a strength of Roethlisberger. It's a case where I think going for quick, you need to really get a quick pressure on him, or you just need to drop 7 and 8 into coverage and try and make that work. This one here, the other thing I want to point out, so Queen is in the game here, but here's the big move, is they went to board here. This is what I call the proxy dime. And the Ravens in the second half of the year really didn't have anybody that they trusted to play safety along with Clark and Elliott. In fact, they were very fortunate they got through the year with basically Clark and Elliott playing every single snap. Considering the injury history of Elliott, that's really amazing, frankly.
It really is. And the physicality of the position in itself, I mean, yes. So maybe we'll talk a little bit later about how it shapes up for the year. But, man, we dodged the bullet last year with that. But, Ken, can you just, I think you're about to do it, but we see Board and Queen lined up there. And I think most people would think, all right, they got 2 linebackers out on the field. They both have the 40 numbers jersey. So what makes this the proxy dime? Can you just explain that?
Yeah, I'll just explain it. It is a nickel in the sense you would talk about it. Anybody else who's with another team analyzing this game, or maybe a PFF is going to say it's just a nickel defense. Ravens playing a lot of nickel on third down. Well, in a sense it's true, but what they're really doing is they're playing Board in basically the only position they use him at inside linebacker, which is in the same role that the dime back would have in obvious passing situations. So they move him in to play this weak side linebacker spot. In this case, it looks like he's playing on the strong side, but the role is the same. He's playing an inside linebacker spot on an obvious passing down, and that's where he is in this case. And they did not have a third safety they could go to on the field. Levine obviously hurt, and no other options really existed. My own personal view, they could have picked somebody up off the street who was probably better. They didn't do it. They probably had it in terms of Gilchrist early in the year. And I think this really hurt the Ravens down the stretch, honestly. Board, outstanding special teams player, one of the best in the league. But as a defensive player, he wasn't really good in coverage. And he also had a lot of problems tackling this last season.
And I don't see a lot of depth there as far as the Ravens. Maybe they could use Ford in that role, but or Queen stays on the field more and you just go with the, a linebacker on every one of your dime downs. But man, it's going to be tough to fill that role. But it's not like we drafted a guy. That's why I didn't take a guy like Zaven Collins off my board, Ken, because I could see a role for him where he's setting the edge or playing a Bowser role in some type of downs and also be a dime backer for us. So it's not necessarily a glamorous position, but like you said, Ken, I mean, we've used resources in this, 6th, 7th round to pick up guys like this before.
Always, yeah. So they addressed it, I think, pretty aggressively in 3 ways over the offseason at least. So they got Brandon Stevens, and they came in the 3rd round. That's a huge overdraft for a dime. Ozzy's typical value in that has been the 6th round or later. Inexpensive free agent, 7th round. You could go through the history of the guys the Ravens have used in that position. That's when they're taken. They had Geno Stone re-signed this offseason. He may make the team. He may not. He may just be a practice squad guy that they bring back and they have available when they need him. And then they also got our Darius Washington, which is an interesting pickup because I think he could easily play the back end in some dime situations more likely than he would pick up a dime safety role where he's playing more of a linebacker position. He could also be the kind of guy you coverage switch, move over the slot guy, and take that coverage role while the slot guy blitzes. So he gives you a lot of flexibility in there if he's in the game anyway. I like that pickup. I think it might work out. I think if I had to guess, I'd say that Stevens is the most likely to be on the game in dime situations this year, though.
I think both of them can. It's as far as not that they were drafted to be a dime backer, but they were drafted to allow us to play the dime because you have guys, 2 guys like Clark, Elliott, even if one of them went down, both are completely comfortable in that role. It's just natural to them. They could both blitz, they could both cover. So it was instead of drafting a dime backer in the 6th round, we pretty much drafted guys that could play free safety to allow the safeties that we had already to be that dime.
Right. We've talked about that a lot on my show, is that basically if you don't have a free safety, you don't have a guy you really trust at free safety, then you don't have a flexible set of safeties like a lot of teams say. What that really means is you got 3 guys who are strong safety / dime backs. You don't have that one guy who you really trust to play center field, and you're much better off having Ed Reed or Eric Weddle or any number of other good center fielders back there. Obviously, you're better if you have Jesse Bates or something like that. But even if you have a guy you just trust to play the back end and read the football aggressively, I think you like that better. And Brandon Stevens, I think, gives them a chance at that player this season.
Okay, so you want to go ahead and run it through here?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. We'll play this one more time. All right, a little short swing past the running back. So that was a time they had 10 in. They got a little 13-yard play on it. Very next play, this is giving me trouble here, but I'll jump back in here because this has failed too many times already for me to think it's going to recover.
So, Ken, yes, I like Washington. I think that his role on the team is going to be carved out on defense and not special teams. And, I look at the time, and his 4.62 has been bothering me. But then when I compare it to, what Clark and Elliott run, and especially now that they've been in the league for a little while, Washington's going to give you about the same play speed as those guys, and his instincts, if not this year, in the near future, will be on par. His instincts were such a strength in college, our Darius Washington. So I think that he has a way to make this team basically in this defense in particular.
Yeah, the Ravens have not been afraid of having smaller players on the back end. And if you look back, Webb, a smaller player, but the guy I would point to who had a big part in the Ravens defenses from 06 to 08 is Corey Ivy. As a 5'8" guy he was I think Bart Scott called him the Tasmanian Devil. But he would go, he had one really great game he played. I think I don't remember where he played the game, but the flight had to stop on the way back in Pittsburgh because he was hurt. And I mean, that's the kind of thing. I mean, he played the game, and then
Yep.
and, you know they had
Number
to get him off the
35,
plane
man.
early.
He was tough. 35 was tough, man. He was a heck of a player. And what era was that again? 06, 07? Was that
06, 07, 08. If you look at the 27-0 Ravens win at Baltimore, where they got 9 sacks off Roethlisberger in 06, and I think it's like in November of 06. That game, Ivy had the strip, which ended up being Adillis Thomas's run back for the touchdown. And then Ivy later had an interception in the same game where he's in the backfield on a screen pass, just had it diagnosed. And I think this maybe fits in with one of your earlier points. The opposing quarterback, Pat Roethlisberger in this case, just didn't see him. And he threw the ball literally right into his belt buckle for the interception. All right, so we got one more play to show you. This is, again, another proxy dime versus 11 personnel. This is on 3rd and 4. Got 2 outside linebackers and 2 defensive linemen. This is more like the standard version of this. In this case, really, pressure takes a long time to develop. One of the things I'm not really crazy about that's happening on this play is, again, Board in the middle of the field, I think, is giving you less than what you get from your typical safety in this spot. So his route recognition is not great, and he basically allows a receiver to get in a hole and doesn't try and close it up against Smith-Schuster there. And that's a little bothersome. Queen's on the back end of that play too, by the way. He's maybe a little too far off the line of scrimmage to be happy about that. But do you have thoughts on this?
Yes, I wanted to ask you if you could slow it down, slow motion this play.
Sure. You want a top view or you want this?
That from that view, because I really wanted to let people see where Board is and where Queen is.
Okay.
To illustrate your point about, he's got plenty. Ken, he's got plenty of a safety net. There's nothing going on around him.
Right. Elliott was there to pick up his right outside shoulder. So is it really no excuse for him not moving back?
Right here.
Yep. And, if this was one of the things you'll see if you go to camp is that they have to tell the linebackers to wait until they, count to 3 or they give them some signal to close on a running back. But you don't have to wait. When you're in an actual game, you go ahead and make that tackle, get in his face there to try and disrupt that play. So it's kind of an unfortunate one there. I want to see it from the top view here while we're here.
Sure, yes.
All right, so we've got Queen up here. We got Board here. And Juju's coming up. Ravens had a lot of trouble with bunch formations in general at trying to figure out the coverage. But I don't really have a good reason why Queen would have dropped as deep as he did on this play. So it's not all Board by any stretch.
And I mean, Board has someone crossing behind him, so it's definitely not. It's just the lateness. That 1 second, Ken, is something that I personally look for. Okay, he's not your responsibility anymore. It's just a little late.
Yep. All righty. That's all I have for the plays here. Did you want to talk a little bit about next year?
Yes. Let me go ahead and pull us up here, Ken, or remove the all 22. There we are.
Sure.
There we go. Hopefully get a nice close-up of our faces here. 2 good-looking gentlemen bringing some football news to you. But, Ken, our Darius Washington, but Brandon Stevens is really the guy here I think we should be talking about. I thought it was really interesting in DaCosta's press conference when he said, basically, we're grooming this guy to play free safety. And what better way? I mean, that's a huge responsibility for a rookie. I don't think they're going to throw him out there single high safety and replace Elliott anytime soon. But this video right here shows ways in which we could use a player like Stevens and give him that little chunk. 10, 15 snaps a game, Ken? What would be a estimation if you could speak?
How about every dime play? That would be my call. So if they're going to play, okay, let's figure this out. Let's do a little math. Let's say they can get back to 35 to 40% dime. Go in the short end and say 35. We can call it a third of the plays. If you average 63 defensive snaps a game, maybe he plays 21 plus penalties. So we 21. Sure, I'd take that per game from him. That'd be terrific.
Okay. Because we also have Jimmy in there, Ken, and he played a lot of that. It seemed like, at least, he was on the field in those type of pass situations as a safety early in the season. So if Tavon is healthy, you notice from that first game, the very first clips we looked at, it had Tavon Young on the field. Jimmy Smith was the single or the deep safety on that play. So we have options if they wanted to mix it up and not play Brandon Stevens on every play. But yes, you'd like to see about 20 plus snaps a game in dime. And you have those numbers again for us, Ken. Maybe this would be a good time. If you did, if you didn't, it's no big deal. But as far as how often we used the dime last year compared to the year before.
Okay, so we'll start with the year before because they played the dime that year. And let me just make sure I can bring this up here. It's going to take me a second. But they played the dime 41% of the time in 2020, which was the all-time franchise record. The previous high they had is 34.5% for the 2000 defense. A lot of people don't think, well, why would they ever do that? They had such a great starting 11. Well, those three guys who were the specialists, the nickel, the dime, and the quarter, in that case, because they played 55 snaps a quarter that year, played the highest leverage snaps of the entire year, and they're largely forgotten. But Robert Bailey, James Trapp, and Corey Harris were very special players, and they contributed in a mighty way to that 2000 defense.
Yeah, Corey Ivy. I mean, that was the first guy that came into my mind.
Corey Harris, I'm
sorry. A lot of late leaves late in that game. James Trapp was a heck of a player too. But a lot of obvious passing situations. And let's face it, Ken, they couldn't run the ball on us. So it was game plan specific. A lot of that, I feel like, would have had to have been.
It really was, and it wasn't all leads, though. I mean, they played the quarter on 3rd and 4 as their regular defense. It's like, put seven defensive backs on the field. The Jacksonville game early in the year, they were trailing a lot of that game, but they played, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, the quarters on the field. And they really hadn't done that in any other year other than 1996. And there was a lot of turmoil with the 96 defense, but Ray Lewis basically was coming off the field on 3rd down, played about 2/3 of the snaps, and they had a quarter back in there, and it was Benny Thompson, who was a special teams ace back in that era, very much a Levine-esque player. And he had one big game where he had 3 sacks, all in that quarter defense.
So, Ken, I also wanted to ask you about the dime as it relates. I would start with the Cleveland Browns, who obviously have Harrison Bryant, they have Njoku, they have Austin Hooper. So you're talking about 3 tight ends. Really, the tight end group is as deep, if not deeper, than their receiver group. They have Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and they have Hollywood Higgins back. How would you match up against the different formations, considering that their tight ends are receiving threats, more like a receiver? They can, they threaten you in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a time when you really want to make sure you're not in this proxy dime, because having extra linebacker on the field is not sufficient in general to cover a tight end who's really a split receiving threat. You want to have an extra safety on the field. You want to have an extra corner on the field. If you're going to play zone, you certainly want that safety to understand what's going on behind him. If you want to play man-to-man coverage, Jimmy Smith is your guy, or maybe Elliott or somebody is your guy. But you mentioned Cleveland specifically. If you recall back to the 2018 The Stand against Cleveland, where they had 4 straight passes defense. It was Levine getting 2 of those, covering man-to-man and Njoku. So, you can do that with certain dimes. It's much more difficult to do that with an inside linebacker.
Well, how about we'll throw it to you this way then. Our first 2 games, Darren Waller and Travis Kelce. I love Chuck Clark, and he punches above his weight, but we've seen that story before. Jimmy did, I thought, a pretty darn good job on Kelce. Would you expect Jimmy? I mean, this is early in the season, so we're going to cross our fingers that everybody's healthy. But would you expect Jimmy in those situations to be a guy we could use on Kelce, along with the other stuff we're going to do in zone to try to bracket him in?
Mm-hmm. It's not an unreasonable solution at all, and I think it depends a lot on the personnel package, because the Chiefs play some 12 against the Ravens too. So they'll have, it used to be Bell. I don't know who their second tight end is right now, but when they play 12, then the Ravens might play a kind of a jumbo nickel look, and then it ends up being a safety on Kelce. If they play 11, then you've got more opportunity to change it up. And then, of course, once you get to 3rd down and obvious passing situations, that's the time where you're more likely to see somebody like Jimmy Smith covering Kelce.
Yes, I mean that's a big emphasis for me. These first two games is how we're going to cover these tight ends. So I figured the dime defense itself would figure into that. I mean, Marlon's done a pretty good job covering Tyreek Hill. I rewatched that Chiefs game a few days ago, actually, Ken, and the throws that Mahomes made in that game. I mean, you just kind of had to tip your hat. I think it was one was Humphrey gave up a touchdown, and the other was Peters. But we're talking back at the end zone, perfect touch. I mean, Mahomes is under pressure. So, is it with the dime defense, aside from it just being a better coverage player, is more speed overall in that defense? Do you think is important in games like that?
I always like more speed. Speed gives you flexibility on defense. If you can give up speed, if you can get speed without giving up something else that goes along with that, like ability to hold the line of scrimmage or the edge or whatever it might be, of course you want more of that. Queen gives you a lot of that. That first Kansas City game was kind of his poster game for poor inside linebacker coverage play. In fact, my article that week was about 5 individual times where another Raven had emoted on screen about his play. That you really don't want to see that. You don't want to see your teammates, calling you out after the play. And they can do it subtly sometimes. You see Fort giving him a low 5, obviously giving him some piece of advice on a bad play. And then you can see Marlon Humphrey, who's not afraid to go over to him and cock his head like this. What were you thinking, kind of thing on that play. But you really don't want to see that. So Queen's evolved some as a coverage player, look better on wheel routes and some of the other things. But he's basically, I think he's going to be a running back coverage guy more than he's going to be a zone guy in the middle of the field, because I think his skills are downhill more than their understanding zone concepts. And hopefully that'll change and evolve. But it's not where he's strong or was strong in 2020.
Well, I have to agree with that. I don't worry about Queen in more of these man situations. It's more of a feel for what's behind him. And I know that's a term you like to use, and it's just so appropriate for Patrick Queen because, a couple of the passes that he gave up that were completed, the coverage was completely fine when it was man-to-man. I mean, better than fine. He'd just get beat, like you said, tip-the-hat situation. But having a feel for what's going on behind him, and we just saw that with the last play for Board, that's still a concern for me as far as weapons over the middle and the tight ends that we're going to have to face this year. And then that brings me to the Steelers, Ken. What can you tell me about the matching up with the Steelers if, in fact, they look like they've committed more to the run game? But if we see the same Steelers we saw last year, not that we had a problem stopping them the second game, which was an odd game. We had a lot of people out. But what would you say? Does the dime defense apply a lot here, I would guess?
Well, you got to start by stopping the run and getting the Steelers to these unfavorable third down, 6, third and longer. I think is where you want to certainly be. And then when the Steelers put on a 0-1 package or they put on an extreme package, you have to have the appropriate extreme response ready. And I think the Ravens have a lot of options with that in terms of the defensive backs on the roster, for the coming season.
Well, Ken, I really appreciate this. This has been wonderful. I'm sure people will love it on my channel, get to interact with them all the time. So getting to know some people out there, Ken, which is nice. Good people. And I want to encourage anybody to ask your question below or direct message me, but I'd rather you put it in the comment section for this one instead of a direct message, because I'm sure a lot of people have questions. If I'm not sure about something, I'll ask Ken. In fact, I'll probably just ask Ken anyway, just an excuse to talk with him. But Ken, I thank you very much for coming on and for doing this, taking so much of your time out. I appreciate everything you do for the Ravens flock, football is family, and just thank you, Ken. Is there anything else as far as a closing thought, though?
There's just one more, because I was looking this number for you, but 15.3% dime. So down from 41% and change to 15.3, that's playoffs included last year, shows you just how much they relied on that proxy dime. And it's really not, I don't think it's what the Ravens are going to want to do in 2020. I think they've made a number of acquisitions where we'll see a lot more dime.
So it went from 41 to 15%. So you can see how that affected our defense last year. Still a good defense overall, but there's going to be a game sooner or later, Ken. It might cost us home field advantage. It might cost us the division. It might cost us a playoff spot. It might cost us a big game.
It might cost us a playoff game. Yeah.
playoff game. It could be early exit, especially against a team like Kansas City. I want to see that speed on the field, Ken. That's why I mentioned I want to see more speed on the field. There's 0 inside linebacker dimes. I'm all about it, buddy. Especially when you got tacklers like Clark and Elliott. Physical players who, even if they're not going to be able to make a tackle, are going to be able to push a blocker back or be physical or change the path of the guy who has the ball in his hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that look as well. And I love it in particular when the Ravens have guys like Bowser, last year Judon, hopefully away, and Dalen Hayes develop into the kind of players who can drop the coverage and give you a lot of value there as well. So it's not always from your inside linebackers you get coverage value. It's in the case of Bowser, he's the best coverage outside linebacker the entire game. And Ravens very fortunate to have him, and I'm sure they'll use him a lot that way this year.
Looking forward to it, Ken. Be checking in. Remember, Film Study Baltimore, Film Study Ravens. We'll have the links down below to Ken's work. In fact, I might even flash them right up on the screen. But once again, Ken, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
All kinds of fun, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.